So when we look at people who lose weight and keep it off, what are some characteristics that they actually have? So if we look at like the 5%, right? Like the people who actually like win at this stuff, what characteristics do they have? Because I think that's a much more important demographic to have. And there's a lot of stuff you would expect, like they practice self-monitoring, they weigh themselves like relatively regularly, they practice some form of cognitive restraint, being either calorie tracking or restricting carbohydrates or restricting fats or, some form of restriction, right? They exercise. Of people who lose weight and keep it off, over 70% engage in regular exercise. Of people who put it back on, less than 30% engage in regular exercise. And then there was one thing that really stood out to me in a systematic review that came out a couple years ago by a researcher named Marie Spreckley. And they interviewed people that not only did they take the metrics, but they interviewed them. And something that I never thought of before stuck out to me. They said that they felt like they had to develop a new identity. And that was very striking to me. But if you think about, again, if we go back to addiction, if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, you have to change your entire life because you can't go to the same places you went before. You can't hang out with the same people that you hung out with before. You might even need to get a new job, whatever. Like you have to change your entire life.
Totally.
And are you familiar with Ethan Suplee?
Yeah, he's the guy. He was a 500-pound guy, right?
Yep, a Hollywood actor.
Yeah, and he lost like so much weight. Now he's jacked.
Lost over 300 pounds. Great guy.
Is he a friend of yours?
Yeah. So Ethan and I keep up quite a bit. I've been on his podcast a few times. He's a great guy.
He's got a podcast?
Yes, called American Glutton. Yeah,
oh.
Really good, really good show. So Ethan, when I saw this, it made me think of him because when he posts pictures in the gym, he'll always say on his Instagram, he says, "I killed my clone today." Yeah. So I texted him and I said, "Is this what you mean? Like developing a new identity?" He said, "That's exactly what I'm talking about. Because that person, that 500 plus pound person still lives inside of me and I have to choose to be somebody different every single day."
Wow. And how does he do it?
So I think...
To reframe in your brain?
Yeah. So I think, first off, this may be unpopular. I heard a quote from Robert Downey Jr., like about his drug addiction. I think he was talking to Oprah. And I'm going to paraphrase, so I apologize in advance if I butcher this quote.
Okay.
But he said, "It's really not that difficult to fix these seemingly ghastly problems in our life. What's difficult is to decide, because you're going to have to decide to be someone different than you were before. And that's what's hard to leave behind because you've developed an entire identity around who you are based on this. And even though this might be an improvement, it's still, people have a hard time with change." So for him,
it's so true. And then you got to decide every day.
Right. So what I tell people is, think about the person you want to become. And this goes for anything, not just like weight loss, but anything.
It is for anything.
Think about the person you want to become. What do you think that person's habits and lifestyle look like? Because you're not going to be able to become a new person while dragging your old habits and behaviors behind you like an anchor. You have to cut them free. And so that's not X's and O's stuff. That's mindset stuff, which I find myself talking about mindset a lot more over the years. And I mean, my brother was a drug addict, and he said something to me that was really striking because I asked him, like, what was your rock bottom? Like, when did you went to rehab, you did all this, like, and like, it just started getting better one day. Like, what happened? Was like you went to jail? Like, was it that? And he said, one day I just woke up and realized I lose everything.
Wow.
I get a relationship and I lose it. I get some money and I lose it. I get a job and I lose it. I just got sick and tired of losing. And I think until somebody has that point in their life where it's like, Eric Thomas says, when the pain of staying the same becomes the greater than the pain of change, that's when we change. So it's like that's why when people ask me, how do I get my dad to follow a diet? How do I get my spouse? And I said, I mean, you can, like, the best thing you can do is provide an example by, like, walking the walk yourself and hope they'll get interested. But the whole saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
So true.
Somebody really has to make a decision. And I'm not trying to be ableist or anything like that. But if you talk to people who struggled with addiction and went through rehab multiple times, they all have very similar stories, at least in my experience, which is one day they just got absolutely fed up with the state of their life and they just said, no more.
Exactly.
I'm not doing this anymore.